Mom versus the driving test. Passage, a milestone that marks a journey into adulthood. For most people, the process is fairly straightforward. Learn the rules of the road, pass the written exam, get behind the wheel, and hope for the best. But oddly enough, some folks choose, for any number of reasons, to skip this life step entirely. For some, driving is too scary. For others, owning a car is too expensive. Then there are those who simply don't need to drive, living in cities with mass transit or preferring to be chauffeured around like royalty. Mom was one of those people. And let me tell you, her lack of a license was deeply inconvenient for the rest of us. Whenever we needed to go anywhere further than a walk away, we had two choices. Wait for Dad to get home from work, or beg someone to drive us out of the goodness of their heart. This meant we missed out on a lot of things, all because no one in the household could legally drive except Dad. And over time, Dad had had enough. All the driving, all the responsibility, all the late night, "Can you take us here? Can you take us there?" requests, it was wearing him down. The time had come. Time for Mom to step further into adulthood and finally get her license in her mid-30s. Before she could officially start learning to drive, Mom had to first pass a written exam and obtain her learner's permit. She picked up a driver's manual, flipping through the pages, filled with basic rules of the road, common sense things that new drivers needed to know. The test itself was simple. 10 multiple choice questions, randomly selected from the book. If you studied the entire manual, you'd be fine. As Dad drove home and he pulled away from the registration office, Mom sat cradling the book in her hands, flipping through the pages, mentally preparing for the challenge ahead. Casually, she turned to Dad and asked, "So, where do I start?" Dad, being practical for once, suggested she jump right in, flip to one of those sample tests in the manual, and try and answer in some of the questions. That way she could gauge how much she already knew versus how much she needed to study. Mom nodded, flipped randomly through the book, and landed on a test page. The silence in the car was deafening. For several long minutes, Mom sat there staring intently at the first question. Finally, Dad couldn't take it anymore. "Well," he inquired, "how's it going? Do you feel like you know most of the answers they'll expect?" Mom hesitated. Then, still staring at the page, she asked, "What if none of the available answers is correct?" Dad blinked, thinking about what she just said. "One of the answers is correct. There's always a correct one," he insisted. Mom carefully reviewed the multiple choice options again. Then, with absolute certainty, she responded, "Nope, definitely not. None of these answers are correct." Dad frowned, his brow furrowing with concern. "One of those answers has to be the right one," he scolded, starting to lose patience. "Just pick one and check the answer in the back of the book." Mom shook her head, refusing to back down. "I'm telling you, none of these answers are correct," she protested. Dad sighed dramatically, trying to remain calm. "They don't publish mistakes in the official driving manual," he explained. And with that, he finally asked, "Fine, what's the question? What are the possible answers?" Mom read them aloud, her voice laced with frustration. "When transporting items, where do you tie your packages? The choices are: 1. Tie it to your leg. 2. Tie it to the back of your seat. 3. Tie it to your fender. And 4. Tie it to your back." Mom stared at these choices in horror. She pictured herself approaching the car with a package tied to her leg, hobbling like Gunsmoke's Chester, swinging the package out with every step so she wouldn't damage it before even getting into the car. Where exactly on her leg is she supposed to tie it? Higher up? Lower down? Would it interfere with braking? Would it interfere with acceleration? Would she look completely ridiculous? And why, for the love of all things reasonable, couldn't she just toss the package into the back seat like she did with the kids? That option, frustratingly, was not listed. Mom read the questions and the answers aloud once again. Dad blinked. Then slowly a nervous grin crept across his face. "What kind of stupid questions and answers are these?" he scoffed. "Let me see that booklet." He pulled over, snatched the manual from Mom's hands, and scanned the page. One quick glance, One glorious moment of realization. Without knowing there was such a thing, Mom had accidentally opened the book to the motorcycle sample test. Mom, smirking triumphantly, sat back in her seat. Dad closed the book, placed it on the dashboard, and stared out the windshield in stunned silence. Because for one horrible moment, he had genuinely believed Mom was about to fail a written test before even trying. A few more seconds passed. Then slowly, Dad started to laugh. And Mom? She laughed even harder. And you know what happened. Mom did eventually study the correct book and pass her test. But to this day, that one question about tying packages to your leg remains one of the most hilariously unanswered burning questions in our family history. I hope you enjoyed this story about Mom and her learning to drive. And I hope you'll come back often for other stories, because we've got a lot of them. And while you're at it, feel free to hit that little subscribe button at the bottom, possibly that thumbs up button, and best of all, tell all your friends, anyone who could use a laugh. Bye for now.